professional development. And I get to be with my bestie in the world, which is Christy, and we spend pretty much 24/7 on Zoom together. So you'll get to learn about that.
Yeah, so we're just so happy to see you, and just take your time, look through the chat. We have things that we'll tell you about in terms of cameras on, cameras off, come, go. We've got 2 other team members here today. So you'll see Miss Tony from the great state of Florida. And then you'll also see Miss Lisa from the great state of, Lisa, are you in New York today?
I am in New York.
Okay, so we got the East Coast covered from New York to Florida. And so Lisa and Tony are there to support you. So you can private chat with them, or just publicly, or unmute yourself anytime and say, I need some help. But they will be watching the waiting room. So if you need to go and come back, if you have colleagues that are just jumping on, let them know they can come at any time. But Julie, let's kick it off with a little fun, and then we'll get back to some logistics.
Okay, good. I'm going to share my screen right now and just kind of get us in the groove.
Okay.
So one thing we just want to start with is, hopefully you noticed we had some setup screens, right? So we had setup screens that were scrolling to get people really set and thinking. Now we're going to be really transparent about the why behind everything we do. So already right now you could be thinking, how am I getting my learners set for learning? Notice the kinds of things. In fact, in the chat, what was really helpful to you as a learner? Just put in the chat anything that really helped you or got you set for learning this morning.
And it could have been something you did over the weekend. Jory says the music, but just think for a minute, like, how did you prepare yourself? Did anybody like close their door and lock it and say, I'm not to be disturbed? Was there something that we did to make you feel like, now is time for learning. Now my brain is ready?
So people are saying emails with the links, coffee, the checklist. Someone put a note on their door. Some people are preparing hot tea. A lot of people are saying the reminder emails. So Christy, can you talk about that, because you're the mastermind behind that?
Yeah, and if you didn't get it, don't worry. We'll work that all out. But what we try to do is send you different ways to get prepared. So sometimes it's a long email with lots of details. Sometimes it's like, just read above the fold and here's the 5 things you need to know. Sometimes it's like, we're going to be on in an hour, click here. And so we try to mix and match for different learners and hit them at different points of when they have readiness. But we also know when it's like right time to get learning, you're like, oh my God, where's that Zoom? And so we want to repeat and repeat and repeat so that folks know that they're in the right place, that they can come and go as they need to, and that this time is just for them.
Great. And so you saw the rotating one if you got on a little bit earlier, so you saw all the information. If not, we have it kind of summarized for you here, everything that you need to know. Pay attention to what works for you as a learner, and also what works for other people as learners, because as educators, we often do what works best for us, and we're not meeting the needs of the wide range of learners in front of us. Okay, so we're going to be talking a lot about that.
And so we, like Julie said, we're going to be really transparent, but we also want you to pay really deep attention to what's happening in the chat. How is this amazing group of folks that have so much experience in supporting adult learners, how are they approaching this? What are they noticing about it now that they get to do what Jenna said? I get still in this, Jenna. It's like me learning. It's like, for once I get to think about my craft. And so really notice what other people are noticing.
Yep. Also notice what doesn't work well for you. It is okay for you to say, this didn't work for me. All of it is learning for all of us. And so we really appreciate everything that you're sharing. So you're going to be learning with us for 75 minutes today. It will be recorded. And so you will get a recording of this whole thing. Christy, are you recording now?
I'm recording. Thank you for checking.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to start with our opener today. I'm going to tell people, actually take a peek at what the opener prompts are. And in a minute, we're going to have you jump up and shout, or raise your hand and shout, or simply raise your hand, right? You have options, levels of ways to engage. This is our first time. Many of us don't know one another, so you might not be someone who wants to jump up. I'm someone who has ADHD as an attribute, and if I could, I would do a back handspring for each of these things. So for me, I'm just about trying to stay safe. For you, it might be, it's just about your own risk. Christy, do you want to describe how you respond to something like
Yeah.
that.
So like I'm getting better because I've been hanging out with Julie, but if you would have known me back in March, I would have been like, oh, cameras off, keep myself muted. I'm not going to like jump up. Maybe I still have my pajamas on from the waist down, which I do. So all of those things would be going on in my mind. And I'd be like, am I going to do it right? Because you all know me, I have that negative talk. So now that I've been with Julie more, it's like, I might even jump up and show you my pajamas today. I don't know. We'll see. Right. But like Lucy said, she would love to jump up and shout, but her baby just fell asleep. And sometimes I have a dog on my lap that finally went to sleep and I am not jumping up. So you want people to be able to do what works for them in that moment. You can even unmute yourself and we can all scream, that's me. If you're like, ooh, that's going to be a lot of noise.
Going get the dog today then? Or?
Okay. And so we'll just, Julie, let's do it without the prompts. You'll saw what's coming. You can change your view because Zoom keeps changing. You can go to gallery view, and then you can see everybody jumping up or yelling. You can unmute yourself. And Maria, you might want to mute your computer so we don't wake up that baby. But we can scream or yell or raise your hand or use a little emoji or a little thumbs up. Doesn't have to be big. All right, Julie, we're ready.
Okay, ready.
Okay.
Jump up and shout, that's me, if you are loving the fall colors right now.
That's me.
Jump up and shout, that's me, if you recently read a book just for fun.
Oh.
That's me.
Oh, that's good. That's a lot of
A
them.
lot of readers. Good. Jump up and shout, that's me, if you've been teaching adults for more than 5 years.
That's
me.
Okay, jump up and shout, that's me, if you're kind of new to providing professional development to adults. Okay, good.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. Lastly, jump up and shout, that's me, if you're excited to be here together.
That's
me.
That's me. Woohoo! That's me.
Awesome.
Susan.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, that's just our warm up, our opener, getting us thinking, getting us set. I'm just going to share the prompts again in case you're curious. These are prompts that are get to know you type prompts. You can also use this as your set questions, meaning how do you get your learners set and really thinking. And again, you saw us give you options for access points. Access points are the way that people engage with the learning. You had options. You had multiple options. You could holler, you could shout, you could jump, you could stay seated. And notice we didn't say one was better than the other. All were perfectly perfect. Great. Christy, anything else about that's me?
Nope, we're good. Oh yeah, sorry. I was just making sure some people are having trouble getting in. You can change this out. I think what Julie was starting to say was you can make it about your content. So let's say you're doing something on authentic assessment or writing IFSPs or writing IEPs or the 6 ways to do whatever with families or how to engage 3rd graders virtually. So you could say something like, that's related to your content. Julie always does this when I always like to think about it because it's a math one. So like if your kids are younger and you're like, if you're a prime number and you have assigned them numbers ahead of time, they can say, that's me when she lists a number. So it can be something about like, on my IEP team, I'm the one that keeps everybody feeling good about it and keeping the spirit and the intent alive. And they could jump up and down. That's me when I am writing an IEP. So those were kind of quick content ones that aren't aerospace ones because I wouldn't know what an aerospace content would be. But you can also make it content. So right out of the gate, you're connecting the learner to the content, not just to each other.
So your first strategy idea is an opener. It's called That's Me, and you can change it and make it a million different things. Christy and I want to push you from thinking that online learning has to be sit and get. We're moving way beyond sit and get to how do we get those learners participating the way that we used to be able to do that in an auditorium setting, right? Good. Here's what I want to make sure everybody understands the why behind why we're here. Okay. Christy, you want to talk about this?
So this is, again, a strategy that it kind of is a little bit low level in terms of energy, but it's also reminding folks about why. So I always say to people, why is more important than what? And what is more important than how? And we'll revisit that little mantra. But we oftentimes come to professional development thinking about the how. And those of us who deliver PD, we're thinking about how are we going to deliver it? I want you to peel it back and go, why is this important? And so this might be something where you connect with a story. You might talk about a requirement. So like Nancy and others in Michigan that have to sometimes talk about compliance things, you might ground it in that why, but you want to make sure that it's a personal why to the person, not just your why. So this is sort of like, what we as PD providers, this is what has meaning to us. We're trying to bridge that research to practice gap. We're trying to engage our learners. We don't want to be like Ferris Bueller. Anyone want to chat with me today? Anybody going to turn their screen on? Right? And so we want to talk about why are we here? We definitely want to share new ideas. So I'm going to say this multiple times. This is an amazing cohort of 100 humans. Please, please, please share your ideas. Tony and Lisa are going to help us capture everything you share, and we're going to recycle it back onto your dashboard. So it's going to be exponential what we're going to learn. And then we really want to make sure that you have like just so many opportunities to see us try it and see if it works and see if it doesn't. So we're really here to model things, but then to pit stop and say, did you see what we did? So that will be our style.
Beautiful. I'm just answering Brandy, and to those of you who are like, I'm not sure what to pay attention to. Yes, we're recording. Yes, you get the recording, and you may take notes in any way you want. And we're going to give you some options about how to do that in a second. In case you don't know who Christy is, we're going to each introduce ourselves just so you know a little bit more about us.
And so this is also really important. Sometimes you have really tight connections with people that you're working with, and you have really good relations, and you have all kinds of stories. The example was the other day that Heidi and Julie, Heidi, our colleague here from British Columbia, they shared a memory instantly, and I didn't know that. And so I was like a little bit out of the loop, but it was so fun to see them connect. So sometimes you want people to know about your credibility. Sometimes you want them to know, why should you be listening to me? Sometimes you want to remind them that you're human and what you love about your work. So we do this in several different ways, but sometimes we just kind of straight up kind of let people know what our credibility is. Why should they be listening to us? We just need to be careful that it's not too boring about reading our Vita or our bio. And you need to think about when people introduce you. So sometimes you want to maybe talk with them ahead of time in case they're going to just read your bio. But what I like to do is just show a dot connection. So as I tell you a little bit about my background, just keep that idea of that's me in mind. Like, oh, Christy and I share that. Or, oh, I remember when Christy and I did that together in pre-COVID. And then when you hear Julie go, oh, I got that in common with Julie. Or I remember when Julie was in New Hampshire. So you really want this to be about connecting to your history and your credibility, not just like, hi, I'm Dr. Christy Pretti-Frontczak, and I have 50,000 hours of working with adults. Like, right? So any of you who have been a home visitor, you could go, that's me. Any of you who have been a professor or are a professor, like Tweety, you could say, that's me, either inside or in the chat. You might even ask a question like, what was your favorite thing about being a professor? And then I've been a social entrepreneur since 2013. And the things that I love in life are listed there under my research. But my very favorite thing is you all. I love thinking about adult learners, and I love thinking about professional development. And then I have this next slide. And sometimes I talk about both pictures and sometimes I don't, right, Julie? So if I'm mad at Mike, I just talk about the dog. But if Mike's okay, I'll tell you about him. So this is Mike. We've been together about 30 years, which also explains why sometimes I don't talk about him. And some of you know Mike. And so you could be like, oh, I remember Mike, or I met Mike. And this was a picture taken a couple of weeks ago, month ago. I got to visit Julie. So we met for the very first time in person. So we've been working together for years and had never met, even pre-COVID, had never met in person. And so we were out on her patio and she took our picture. And this is my pandemic puppy, Wizzy. and he just left with the dog sitter, so all is good. All right, Julie.
Yeah. So same thing with Christy, and I know that all of you do this. That introductory moment is tricky. Sometimes it's like you're trying to position yourself in a certain way to make sure people want to listen to you. And for me, I also get really nervous. I think it's a gendered thing, honestly. I get a little nervous that people are going to think that I'm tooting my own horn or something. So this is a balance that I really struggle with. I almost always open with a joke. And the joke that I always open with, if you see me present live, is I say, my son introduced me to his teacher and said, my mom is a doctor, but she's not the kind that helps people. And that's true. That's literally what he said. And you're going to find me not very helpful today too. And so, but what that does a little bit is it says, okay, I don't think I'm that big of a deal in some ways. So this is just something to think about. This is my background. I was an inclusive special ed teacher, professor at Syracuse for 14 years. I'm now CEO of Inclusive Schooling. And then I've done a lot of research. And so a lot of the research that I've done is how to best prepare humans to learn, and then how to best teach human beings, especially considering the wide range of diversity of people. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Oh my gosh, Jenna's
Jenna.
that you dance for money. Oh, I wish that I did, because I wish that my kids said that. So this is my family all dressed up. I just want to show you how cute they are. So that's on the right-hand side, my wife, Ellen. Ellen and I got married 1 year ago. So Christy's been married to Mike for 30 years. Ellen and I are just getting started. Similar issues both ways.
Sometimes we talk about them, sometimes we don't.
And then these are my kids, Ella and Sam, and you'll probably hear a little bit about them.
We always talk about them.
So anyway, we're cute, we're polished. That's what you need to know. Okay. Oh, I also have a bigger family. I've got a bunch of cats. Skippy John Jones, the one-eyed cat up here, is just hilarious. And then my new puppy is Maisel down here at the bottom, and she's wild and fabulous. And I'm teaching her to talk with those buttons. So if you want to be a Facebook friend of mine, I'm putting too many videos on Facebook. So Julie Costin, and you can take a look if you're interested. Okay, that's our quick introduction. We just want people to kind of know who we are, so that you know, who are we learning from? And I love to see these connections, right? This is awesome. Okay, so our approach today. Christy, you want to talk about our approach?
Yeah, so we really want to be as interactive and have as many choices as possible. Next week, we're going to talk about the power of choice, and we'll go even deeper. Today, some of the choices are even how you put your screen. So notice if you want to pin the person talking, or pin the PowerPoint, or if you want to hide your self view. So you still want to be able to see all the humans and them to see you, but you don't want to see yourself. So you might hover over your screen, click on the 3 white dots, and hit hide self view. So always be thinking about what choices make me a better learner or make learners learn better. We also want to give you really practical tips that you can use immediately. In the chat, let us know how many of you are working on a project right now, meaning you're working on an online course, a webinar, maybe you're taking the entire Division for Early Childhood International Conference virtually, perhaps, maybe that's you. Yeah, several, right? So we want you to take what you're learning and apply it immediately. And so we hope that these are really practical tools. And if you need something before we cover it, you can drop it in the chat or ask this amazing group of humans. Julie, you want to do the next two?
Yes. So you did the first two, right?
Yeah, but I didn't say about tracking their learning on the notepad.
Okay. How will you keep track of what you're learning is a question that I want you to pause and actually think about.
Okay.
Take a minute and think about what works best for you. So are you someone who's going to be taking written notes? Are you someone who's got a Google Drive open? What's going on for you? And put it in the chat. You can get very specific, meaning like, I'm going to use the Ticonderoga #2 sharpened pencil because that's my jam. Whatever it is for you, put it in the chat. So Corey has fun colored pens. Google Drive. Yep. Take a minute and look at how different people are choosing to capture.
And if you know Corey and you know Sarah, you could have guessed that for them. 2 notebooks. Yeah, Alicia, you got to have different notebooks for different content. Oh, the flare pens are coming out.
Yep. Yellow pad and pen, blue pen. Okay, Boomer,
Great.
says David. Yes, that's amazing. Okay. So it's really fascinating to me to ask this question to a bunch of people, because people have a real preference. Remember this when you're teaching, you want to make sure that they utilize their preference. What we don't want to do is tell people how to capture information. What we do want to do is give multiple choices. So choice, you're going to hear us say this multiple times. Choice is the friend of inclusive education. Choice is a friend of inclusive education. And when we say inclusive education, it means you're really attending to the diverse needs of your group. We're going to create, I'm coming back to the bulleted points. We're going to create a space where we can learn together. Take a minute and double check. Is there anything you can do to get 10% more comfortable? Let's say you're thinking, I really have to use the restroom, but I don't want to get up now. Get up now. We don't care. We'd love it if you made yourself more comfortable and then return. Let's say you say, I wish I was just standing, then stand. Really, really attend to your needs. And it's really interesting because we've all played school for a long time. And we think that the people that are working with us want us to look like we're listening. Guess what? We don't care what you look like. We care that you actually are learning with us, which means you might choose to lay down, which means you might choose to stand up. And so we've got to think about our learners and their comfortable spaces. And then the last one is to create a place that's safe and respectful to diverse humans. We're going to work really hard on that throughout. You might notice, for example, that we have our pronouns on our name. And we're really thinking about our transgender friends and people who are not obviously identified by gender by sight. So we're putting our pronouns just to say, hey, friends, this is a safe space for you. And if you're somebody who wants to change your name, it's no pressure. You don't have to. But if you want to, Christy, will you give them the directions?
Yeah, so there's a couple places. Again, the easiest one is to find your screen in the sea of Zoom. Maybe we can stop sharing our screen for a minute, Julie, and people can find their screen. So there's a couple of things, y'all. When you're in Zoom, really use what's the view that you like. And if you don't want to see the chat, if you find it distracting, hide it behind and make the Zoom always in the front. So there's ways under the meeting to keep it on top, keep the Zoom window on top. That way you're not distracted by the chat. You can find your screen and find the 3 white dots, and that will let you hide your view, but let us see your beautiful face. It'll also let you rename yourself. And so these are important things to do just so that you're looking at it the way that you want to. Do you want to pin something? And so we gave you a little bit of support in our handbook. Tony or Lisa will put the link to the handbook. If you haven't seen it yet, there's a couple of directions about how to kind of lay it out, but that's one easy way to rename yourself. And again, I know not everyone uses Zoom, so that's the other thing you have to think about. If you're going to be using Google Hangout, or you're going to be using Microsoft Teams, or you're going to be using whatever it is, you might need to do some practice runs with a colleague of how does it look? How would I support the learner that's like, I can't hear you. And you're like, well, I can't help you on a Google pad of some sort, right? So you might need to practice different meeting spaces so that you feel comfortable, or find a good YouTube video ahead of time that you can share with folks that they can watch in 3 minutes, how to set up their profile, how to set up their screen in whichever format you're using. Okay.
Beautiful. Okay, so we want to make sure that you know what we're doing the whole class. So this is a big, large look. So I'll talk about week 1, and then Christy will talk about week 2. Today, we're going to talk about designing engaging and inclusive content. So it doesn't matter what your content is, we're going to help you think about how do you design it to be the most engaging and inclusive. You want to talk about week 2?
Couple of weeks, we're going to dig deeper and deeper. So a lot of what before how, even why before what. And then next week, we're going to talk about really the hows and a lot about choice. The third week, we're going to talk about technology, but never are we going to talk about here's how you set up a Zoom breakout room. Some of those will be follow-up in between things that we can share and answer, but we really want it to be much more about the design and the delivery, and how do you use technology to be innovative, to be transformative, to be connective, and not to be the barrier to learning. And then I like the last one, but I want you to think about a boss that you love, a leader that you love to follow. That's what we want. So we want you to be able to deliver it in a way where you have confidence, but also in a way that folks want to go where you're taking them. All right. Let's keep going, Joel. It's already 12:30.
We're doing
Except for in
great.
Hawaii, it's not.
So here it is for today. These are the outcomes. You've seen them already, but today we're going to talk about setting meaningful learning outcomes. We're going to talk about how to create a schedule that flows seamlessly, how to connect with participants, and how to support participants regardless of their ability, race, gender, etc. Okay.
And again, if you need to leave at any time, folks, we're recording. You'll have access to the recording. So just make some notes. You might even say, oh, now that Julie's going to walk me through the agenda today, I can know that, okay, it was a half an hour in before we even started getting to content. So I can fast forward and find what does it mean to get the brain ready, or how do you leverage fun? So this is your at a glance. You can take screenshots of everything, the key PowerPoint slides. Maybe Tony, you can put the link to that. It's on your dashboard. So if you need it, want it later, it's already there.
Yep, fabulous. So this is it. You have to follow the arrows. This is a little bit of a weird setup, but I'm just going to show you. We had our opening. It was called That's Me, if you recall. Then we're going to be talking about learning about your learners, determining your outcomes, setting your schedule, getting the brain ready to learn, being clear, leveraging fun, and closing it up. That's what we have planned for today.
Which is super ambitious.
We got it.
Okay.
We think it might be useful for you. This is if you don't know how to take the notes. If you're wondering, what do I capture? We're sharing big ideas, and notice you can either outline them, draw them, or write them. What's the idea and how do you apply it?
And then back to those of you who, which was almost everyone, have a project they're working on right now. Want you to really think about, how does this apply to what you're planning or what you're delivering? Maybe you're teaching tonight. So what can you take immediately and apply it? All right.
As we jump in, we're going to tell you that Cheryl Kniesel is going to be doing a graphic recording of this, meaning she's going to watch, she's an artist and she's amazing and a good friend of ours, and she's going to be creating a graphic visual of this, meaning a one-page poster that you're all going to get a copy of when it's finished. And it will be finished before our next class. And so you'll get an email that says, here's the poster of what we learned today. Why do we think visual note taking is so important? Because we too often take the written word to be the most important. And we've got many, many learners who prefer a visual way of taking notes. Okay. As we switch in the chat right now, everybody, jot one idea that you're already taking and that you're going to utilize already from anything we've said so far. So I'm just going to pause and I'm going to stop sharing and just give us a 1 minute. We call this a chat splash.
Julie and Christy.
Yeah, Emily.
I can't chat anymore.
Yeah, so Tony says she's going to troubleshoot that. The option disappeared for everyone. Okay, that's not good because we love the chat.
So I can, but it has private messages, direct message only, and it's just going to the 4.
Yeah, mine says the same thing.
Okay,
Private only.
There was
So
a
we won't
message
prompt you.
earlier that said it was disabled, Christy.
Okay,
Sorry,
we'll
didn't
check
mean to-
on it. Thank you, everyone. We'll, Julie, make me the
Okay.
host for a minute so I can see if I can change something.
No, it's back.
It's back.
Yep, it's back now.
Never mind.
I just used my
Put a
magic.
thumbs up if you're good, or put it in the chat. Ta-da, love it. Okay,
You're welcome.
thank you, Zoom Universe Goddess. We appreciate it.
Good. So really quickly, put in the chat. This is called a chat splash. One thing that you've already taken that you're like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to use it. I'm going to try it. Okay. Don't rush to content, Tammy. Music at intro. What else? Chat flash. Good.
Yeah.
That's me. Theme music. Opening slides. Okay, good. Rotating screens.
And
The
if
jump
there's
up.
sorry, Julie.
Go ahead, Christy.
I was just going to say, if there's anything in your to-do list there, or your ta-da list, as my friend J-Lo calls it, if there's anything you're like, but I'm not sure how. For example, people said, I want to do the opening slide rotation. You can totally Google it. However, we just met with the DEC presenters for this year's conference a couple nights ago, and Jenna and others asked that question, and I did a tutorial. So we'll put that on your dashboard about how to do the slideshow. So anything like that, you don't want to Google it, just ask us. We might already have a really easy one that shows you how to do it now that you know you want to do it. So please ask.
Okay. And you're going to get a poster of everything we're talking about today. Christy, tell me why you put this picture in, just because it's fabulous.
Just we were going to show the different openings, but I think for time's sake, we can just go to the next one. Is that cool?
That's
Or you
great.
can do a high level.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a high level overview. So Christy and I put together, you're going to get a lot of our favorite ways to open up something. So one thing we don't think is a good idea is to say, hi, everybody, we're here to talk about the 5 ways, blah, blah, blah. That's not an opening that makes people thrilled to learn, okay? We think a music selection that relates, a poem, virtual stepping stones, a mystery box, a ticket in the door, a photo gallery, dress up as something from the topic, open a time capsule. All of these ideas are really just some unique ideas about opening your presentation in a way that is exciting, engaging, and really leverages some fun. Christy, any comments about that?
Keep going. I'm just multitasking. So if I'm quiet,
Doing
you
great.
keep
Yep.
going.
So this is what stepping stones are. So pre-COVID time, these are my students at Syracuse University. Previous to COVID, I used to have people have stepping stones all the way into the classroom. So they'd walk on things and they would be reminded, they would be learning, there would be questions. In this case, they were learning the parts of an IEP before an exam. And even when I taught at conferences, I would have big stepping stones out in the hallway and my rooms were always packed. And I think it's because people were curious about the stepping stones. But there's a way to do this virtually too. And that's kind of what Christy put on that revolving slideshow to begin with, is kind of a virtual stepping stone example. The purpose of an opener is to gain attention and get everyone prepared, capture interest, and evoke the PEA. If you're like, what's the PEA? Hold tight. It should generate excitement and promote learning, and a good opener lasts less than 5 minutes. So today our opener was That's Me, and you get to think about what openers do you want to use. If you're teaching a class of 12 or 14, what's the way I would say it? A session of 12 or 14 classes, you have an opener for each one. So you have a different opener for each one that gets people in and learning.
And you could also do the same thing and it becomes a ritual. So sometimes having a ritual helps folks know what is predictable, what will happen, what's going to come next. Quickly, again, 2 things, Julie, just from the chat. If folks have resources, ideas, examples of their own, those are always, always welcome. You can either email them to me and let me curate and decide what would be universally applicable to folks if you're not sure. You can also drop it in the chat, and then just know if people are dropping resources in the chat, we will go back and get all of that and organize it on your dashboard. So don't worry, like you have to check or see everything. That's 1. 2, Peggy, great question about the music. I did a little bit of research on it. I need to do more, so I made myself a note. She's asking about copyright. Generally speaking, when I was going around on tour with Pretti-Frontczak, the general rule of thumb around playing music in live streaming was when you aren't recording it, it was sort of free game. Then if you're going to record it and resell it, then it started having implications. So I'll double check that, or if others know, just drop in the chat if you have some experience with copyright and music. But in general, what I had learned was that if it's not being captured, it's like, let's say you're in a ballroom and you're just playing music, it's the same thing if you were in Zoom, but we're going to double check it.
Great. Yeah, good. People are asking questions about the emotional triggers for people. Sometimes it lifts them and sometimes there's an unwanted consequence. I love that you said that, Sarah, because that's true about everything we're going to do, right? So even the concept of That's Me, for some of us, it's like, for some of us, it's like, oh no, I thought this was going to be different, right? And you start to either engage or disengage. So thank you for saying it. And remember, our goal is how do we keep more and more people engaged? But if we get too worried about having a negative consequence, we might not do anything interesting. So we've got to get to that balance.
And I would just say too, it's going to be about learning about your learners, and then also preparing your learners, letting them know there's going to be movement, there's going to be music. If it's too loud, bring your noise canceling headphones or know where to mute us, and we'll put things in a chat. So just keep in mind that when we try to create access points, it may actually create some negative consequence for others. But as Julie said, we don't want to live out of fear of that and do nothing. So how do we create an access point for the person that may have the unintended consequence? Okay.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to say it. We just really love this quote. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so just think about that. How do you show caring for your audience? I'm going to use a couple examples I think, or I hope we modeled some caring, just to be really transparent. And one of them is an email that says, hey, we're excited you're here. This is what to do. In a way that's like, don't you worry, we got you and we're going to support you through this. If you felt cared about in any other way, put that in the chat just so that we can see, and you can see kind of what's being modeled, that idea of care for your learner. Now they're popping in.
Thanks, Em.
Great. The personal hellos, get a snack and take care of yourself. Sometimes we forget to do that. Good. I won't read these all, but feel free to read them as we go.
And just to preview you all, this is the big idea of learn about your learners. And what you're going to find out is we're not going to ask you to do a needs assessment, a poll, anything about their demographics. So just be prepared. This is a different way to learn about your learners. Okay.
Great. Okay. I'm going to talk about Winnie the Pooh characters. So just for a second, dust that memory off if you know who Winnie the Pooh characters are, because there are multiple ways to view these characters and we're going to talk about them. So take a minute to think about all the characters in Winnie the Pooh and see if you can jot down one of them, just sort of get your mind thinking about them. So who's a character in Winnie the Pooh? Just put it in the chat. Tigger. Okay, good. Nice.
And
Great.
again, when Julie invites you to write it in the chat, you can say it in your head. You can write it on your notes. You can be walking around. It's okay. And okay. All right, Julie, keep going there.
Right.
Oh, Christopher Robin. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are. What Christy and I did is we put a bunch of Winnie the Pooh characters down the side, and then we described them. Take a look at the descriptors that we have next to them. We've got Pooh is happy, pleasure seeker, relaxed. Eeyore is loyal, lovable, obstacle finder. Piglet is sensitive, empathetic, and kind. Tigger's energetic, quick, and fun. Owl's wise, gives advice, he's a philosopher. And Rabbit is organized, detailed, and rule follower. Take a minute. First question is this a positive or a negative or a neutral look at these characters? Positive, negative, or neutral? You have three choices here. Positive, Katie said. I agree, positive. Now take a look at these same characters and answer the question, how would you identify yourself? Meaning, if you had to select from these Winnie the Pooh characters, which characters are you most closely like? And you can be kind of a Brangelina sort of combo situation if you want to. So you can mix them together. Yeah, so like Erica says, a mix of Piglet and Rabbit.
And I want you to notice while you're picking, what's your face doing? Are you kind of smiling? If you know somebody, and if you're doing this as a team, like my EITP friends, you might be saying, oh, Susan is totally Tigger. Or you might say that Ted is totally, which one? He's a mix, a little bit of Eeyore and a little bit of Pooh, okay? And usually you're like, how do you feel about that? And so like, think about that, Ted. If I just called you that, did that feel like a compliment? And then let's see where this goes.
Good. And so this is a positive look at these characters. Now we're going to switch it. So get ready, because I'm going to have a different look at these same exact characters.
And sorry, Susan, and sorry, Ted.
So here's a negative look at these same characters: gluttonous, dull, pessimistic, energy drained, nervous, neurotic, hyper overactive, loud, self-centered, egotistical, bossy, inflexible. Now wait, these are the same characters, and I have two totally different views of these same characters. How does that work? And here's the point of all of this. Whoever you are teaching, you have to have a positive, sorry, we'll go back, a positive view of your learners. It is palpable. If you're so excited to see these humans and you think of them as smart and capable and whole and brilliant, then you are going to teach them as such. They will feel it, they will know it, and they will learn from you. If you have this kind of a view, a negative view of those learners, where you're like, oh, I have to work with the kindergarten team again, right? Or whatever. If that's your feeling, it will be palpable to those humans. So we are asking you first and foremost to not only know your learners, but to literally love them and see them through a lens of possibility, capability, and look for their strengths, gifts, and talents.
And then the last way we want to really avoid is labeling them. And so Julie will often say that she has ADHD as an attribute. And so Julie, go to the third one. And that's Julie can describe herself. And, you know, Pam Elwood and others that might have that same attribute. I'm calling out totally. But notice what it goes even further when we start to give labels to folks, either based upon their race, their age, their attitude, whatever it is. We start to like lose the person. We start to lose all the beautiful stuff that they bring. And so we want to make sure that not only do we stay with their strengths and what's presuming competence, as folks said, but really try to make sure that we aren't clustering folks by labels.
How many of you have ever worked with someone who you might consider an Eeyore, right? So, or you've taught in front of people that might be considered Eeyore-like, and you're coming up with ideas and stuff, and they're like, we tried that. It doesn't work. Have you ever put yes in the chat if you've ever had that experience before? What I do for my Eeyores when I'm teaching and there's someone who says that'll never work, that's not a great idea, is I think to myself, this person is an obstacle finder and they're good at it. And I look for the value there. Or those that are nervous about the ideas you're talking about, those are the piglets, right? And we go all the way to anxiety disorder if we're thinking about the medical diagnoses, which we're going to move away from. But essentially, it's someone who's really good at being careful and protecting themselves. And so I reframe my learners in front of me the whole time, and it allows us to be better for our learners. Okay. We're going to talk about diversity in all kinds of ways, but please know that we're moving away from the medical model of disability to the social model of disability. So we're going to talk about diversity in all its forms, but one way to think about diversity is around ability. And we're not using the medical model that says disability resides within the person. It's a pathology. We have to fix it. And are instead moving to this idea that we can remove or create barriers, and that all of it is diversity. And our job is to support and adapt for every learner, for every difference. Okay.
All right, I'll do the next two. So this is our friend, Shelley Moore. And so just as Julie said, that one identity that all of us have is our ability. And what Shelley talks about is all of our identities. And so one thing that we know is that we've got diverse humans. So let's go one. So she talks about being proud to be an outside pin, which we can come back to. This idea, though, is each human in front of us has multiple identities. They have a sexual orientation. They have a religion, even if they don't have a religion, that's an identity. They have a socioeconomic status. They have a gender. Even if that's a transgender or multiple genders, they have an age. They have a race or ethnicity. They have a culture. They have a disability or an ability, however you look at that. So all of when we say diversity and when we say inclusion, we're trying to say, how do I give as many access points to these diverse humans as possible without, like Sarah was saying, creating microaggressions or unintended consequences for a different part of their identity. So we were talking about how folks show up in the world, which is just like their style or their temperament. That's all in this as well. And so we really want to be respectful of those differences, knowing that sometimes we will make a mistake, and all we can do is try to stop it when it happens, repair it, and then restore some sort of homeostasis for the humans. Okay, so great. People keep going with the ideas, and I know that there was a lot of chat about the music, and so we're going to get clarity on that as well. And I love your ideas, Emily, but we're going to keep going because Julie, it's already 10 till.
Christy, I need just a reminder. We go until 1:30, correct?
No, only till quarter after.
Oh man, okay, that's good. We have a half hour. That's perfectly fine. We're jumping into your outcome. So we talked about really the big idea, and you can tell it's a big idea when it has a splat visual over here where it says determine your outcomes. So the first big splat was know and love your learner. The one before that, sorry, was openings, right? Know and love your learner, determine your outcomes. So we have to get really, really cool, really, really ready to think about what are your outcomes.
And I'll just introduce this concept because on your dashboard, and Lisa and Tony will put a link to the dashboard again, there's actually a recording where I explain it a little bit more. Some of you have seen it before. So Julie, go one more slide and I'll just kind of set the stage. This is like playing the game Clue. One more. So one more slide. Yeah. So when you're playing Clue, it's like Colonel Mustard in the library with the candlestick, or Miss Scarlet in the bedroom with the rope. I don't know, probably not a good combination, but it's the only ones I could come up with. Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you want to mix your why, your what, and your how. Remember, why is this important? What am I teaching? And how am I going to teach it? Okay. So Jenna, if you're thinking, playing Clue game, you're trying to make those who, what, where, when all come together. But what we often forget is that the what is so important. So these are 6 types of outcomes. Now I'm going to switch games to Trivial Pursuit. So if you like Trivial Pursuit, imagine this image is a Trivial Pursuit pie. To win at Trivial Pursuit, you need a different color pie piece in your pie holder. You can't have all green or all yellow or all pink. And so you want a mix of outcomes, even if your virtual event is a staff meeting for 20 minutes. So let's say I'm in Boulder Valley with Teresa. She brings us together for Zoom for 20 minutes. She needs a mix in that 20 minutes. Let's say I'm Peggy and I'm doing a 4-day conference across the globe. She's going to need a mix of 6 repeatedly. So it's not just that you have one outcome. Now, Julie and I had 4 today, but if you unpack those 4, you're going to see a mix of all 6. You definitely want some pairs. So if you're going to give a lot of information, pair that with emotional intelligence. If this is going to be a lot of caring and a lot of like building up and supporting the adult, you got to have some application. There's a cross pair that are a nice match. And there's more resources on your dashboard, but this is we call what before how, and you want a mix of 6, at least the pair that is diagonal to each other.
Yeah, so when you say a diagonal, it's almost like if you draw a straight line from information to emotional intelligence, or caring to application, or connection to learning how to learn. And Christy unpacks all of this stuff right on your dashboard, but like learning how to learn, we talked about today, how are you going to take notes? Where will you go to find that, right? So we're helping you to know how to learn with us, because it's not as if you don't know how to learn, but you haven't maybe learned with us in the past, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, the dashboard lives on a WordPress thing. So girls, let's put that in there one more time. Your dashboard, you have lifetime access to it. And the password is the letter P and the letter D. Almost like pig, but PD. Yeah. Anyway, that's an inside joke. Okay, so now we're to another splat. Julie, do you want to set it up and then I'll show a couple of examples?
Yeah. And Tony just put the dashboard. If you haven't been there, visit it. If not, we'll help you. How do you make a dashboard? Is it a landing page? Yes, it's a landing page. And we can help you to know how to do that. But one thing is true, it gives a place for all the information to go. So you'll get used to this place where all our information goes, and you can think about how to create your own. So Christy and I have been doing a lot of scheduling big events. So big events meaning 1,000 people or more, small events for 20 some people. But what we care about is that after you decide what you're teaching and sort of thinking about the mix of 6, we create a schedule that helps all learners to learn. So Christy, do you want to explain this one?
Yeah, let's stop sharing for a minute.
Yeah.
And so you could do this a million different ways, y'all. This is like how Christy's brain works. So just take the idea and then make it work for you and your learners. So what I try to do after I know my mix of 6, and Julie and I have started like getting all excited about what all the activities, do we want to jump up? I start to think about what is a flow. And so we even back to the music, is it early morning? Do we need kind of ease into it? Or do we need movement? Or do we need light a fire? Or do we need to calm down? So just as we think, how many of you are occupational therapists? Anybody an occupational therapist? Yeah, we
Katie,
got some. Katie, I know you're there. Yeah, yeah, okay. This idea of, or even my yoga friends, Miss Nancy, this idea of that we need like lots of sensory input and or movement before we have high cognitive demands, and then we need time to restore afterwards. So if you've ever done yoga and you do something where you move a lot and then you lay down in corpse pose, right? Or in OT land, you would do lots of sensory stuff to get the body ready, high cognitive demands, and then you do something that rests and restores. That's what humans need to move through these cycles. So whether you're doing a staff meeting for 20 minutes or a 4-day event or a 2-hour class, think about that flow. Where are they already coming in? Let's say everybody's rushing from teaching online and doing a home visit and trying to get their own kids through math. Then maybe your opener is 5 minutes of silence. So you flip it and you actually start with Shavasana. Have you ever gone to a class where you're like, everybody says, let's start in lying down. And you're like, yes, I am so ready for this class. I can lay down. I got it. I'm already succeeding, right? So you really want to think about your learners and or give options and say, you know what, we're going to do this opening activity. It's going to be a lot of energy. If you just need to go sit in the corner for a minute, come back in 5 and we'll be ready. Okay. So this is what we mean by a flow. So I'm going to share my screen. And so we, in your dashboard, have given you several. Julie and I are doing an event in a couple of weeks, and we thought we would show what that one looks like. This is an all-day event. And what we did, oh, that's the wrong link. Sorry, y'all. I'll not be my own good teacher here. Let's try again. Copy. And what we want to show you is the color coding. And so maybe Julie, you can talk a little bit about that.
Well, you pull it up. So this is a 1-day event we're doing. And so if you notice, there's a schedule at a glance for a full day event like this. And we've color coded white to mean that they're getting some kind of information or transition, right? We've color coded the blue to be big live sessions, meaning we're giving content. The pink are on-demand sessions. And so they get to go and see these on-demand sessions on their own. And then breakout sessions are orange. So when they're jumping into any breakout session, they can tell what that looks like. Notice the green bio and screen break that we really take seriously. It's turn off your screen, move away, and we give options.
And what this allows folks to do is a map. So if I know that I have another staff meeting and I'm going to miss part of the day, I can look at the schedule and know when can I come back in and leave. That doesn't feel too disruptive. Even if my hosts have said, come and go as you want, I might still feel kind of, about it. Sometimes for my group in Illinois that we're doing with the early intervention training program, we sometimes say to them, okay, guys, the most important part is the orange part because we want you to interact with your cohort members. So if you've got another obligation that day, what can you do to make sure the orange part is sacred? So this doesn't mean that we have to stick to it by the minute, but it gives an added glance for folks to know when can I take a break? When, and also it makes for Julie and I to go, have we given them a break? Now today we haven't, and that's somewhat purposeful. We're just sort of knowing that you guys are like wanting to get as much content as you want, though we have to be careful because even though you want it, your body still needs Shavasana. Okay, so this is just one example. There are several on your dashboard. Any questions or comments about the flow, the schedule?
Christy, just speaking of Shavasana, I'm gonna do a timed 2-minute silence break.
Perfect.
And
I'll
all
get
I'm
the
doing is
timer.
I'm gonna be quiet. So
Okay.
is Christy for 2 minutes. In those 2 minutes, can you run to the restroom? Yep. Can you jot down a new idea? Yeah. You can do what you want. 2 whole minutes.
2 minutes, go.
One, two. How much time left, Christy?
30.
30 seconds. 30 seconds, you can even run out and get a breath of fresh air and come back. People are wondering what's Shavasana. It's corpse pose, laying on your back. When I give a working ways, oh, I'm supposed to be quiet.
Okay, Julie, you can say it now.
When I do working ways options, I often have Shavasana as an option for humans to work in that way. And I had a man who attended a live session with me, and he went to his car, got his yoga mat. It was in Illinois, if anyone was there. Got his yoga mat and laid in the aisle, kind of like right in front of the stage where I was presenting. And he said, I've never learned more at a conference in my life. And so just again, we got to make sure that we're giving learners options about how to engage.
All right, so this is a good point also just to check in with you all. We've got 15 more minutes scheduled. So this is what's going to happen. Julie and I are going to keep going and keep adding. You may hit the leave button at any time. If any of you have been with Julie and me recently, you know that we've renamed the button, even though it still says leave. We call it love ya, gotta go. All right. So if you have to leave at any time, we will keep recording. We will likely go after our allotted time. Again, you could say, I'm leaving now, I'll catch the replay later. Okay. But we want to make sure we give you a little tip all the way through our agenda. All right. And yes, Alicia, Otto is a super wise man. That's an inside thing. All right, Julie, we are ready when you are to take us away from schedules, knowing that there are more on your dashboard that are examples. Maybe the last thing I'll say about that, Julie, is that what we often have as a team is a different version that even has more details. If anybody needs to see that, let us know. Sometimes that learners like the embedded links in the Drive document more than they like a dashboard. So we usually put content in more than one place. And if you have any questions about that, just put it in the chat and I'll come back around to it. Oh, yeah, those were the columns. This is in your PowerPoint. We have one column that says the time. If you have multiple time zones, you might put that. The what, that's not necessarily your learning outcome, but really kind of what it is. The description can be your outcomes. We love the fun, renew, connect column because this is examples of reminds us, what are we doing to create fun? What are we doing to create renewal? What are we doing to create connection? The location is always, as you'll see next week, we may have multiple Zoom rooms for the same event. How do people know where to be and what to get to? And then again, if it's your team that's planning it, you may have technology links, backup plans, who's doing what. Tony's doing this, Lisa's doing that, Julie's doing this, Christy's doing that, and directions for your team.
So we haven't said it, but if we haven't, I'm going to say it now. Christy and I co-teach for a reason. And the reason is it's too difficult to manage all these things at once when you're virtual. So if you're saying, cool, but I don't have a co-teacher, decide anyone who's participating is going to help you. You're going to make them a co-host and they're going to admit people. They're going to help you with stuff. You always want a co-teacher when you're virtual. Can't say it enough. And if you can, so you notice we've also have Tony and Lisa co-teaching with us, but they're helping to support people technologically because you want to be able to keep the content going forward and so that people can provide the support you need. Getting the brain ready to learn. My favorite.
Oh gosh, how much of this do you want to do? Give me a time limit. Do that first, maybe. I don't know.
The PEA. Let's talk about the PEA. So Christy, if we don't get to the rest of it, it's okay.
Okay.
But what I want you to, we will come back to it so you won't miss anything. But we want you to know what the PEA is and how to create it. So the PEA is, Christy, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. And Corey, I'm going to come back to your question later. So the positive emotional attractor, and right, Pam, this is not a John Deere, not the kind that was running around in front of your house the other day. This is a tractor, like you're attracted to someone. And what we do as PD providers is we trigger the PEA. Now notice right now that Julie's going to be my co-teacher and she's going to take notes of things I'm saying in the chat. Again, if that bothers you, just hide the chat and listen and talk with me. But the idea is that we want to trigger the PEA more often than the negative emotional attractor. The NEA is already there and inherent and is a negativity bias. Next slide, Julie. So we already know that it's going to happen. So as PD providers, we have to make sure. Now, both are helpful. We have to have NEA to survive in this world. The problem is if we have too much NEA, we get stuck. That's where you get the yeah buts. It won't work. I can't do it. It's too hard. I don't know what to do. I've already tried it. When you start hearing that, it's somebody who's immersed in the NEA. So how do you trigger the PEA? Next slide. We gave you on your dashboard a whole activity about how to trigger the PEA in yourself and in others. A fast way, like that fast, a way that takes a couple minutes, and a way that may take an afternoon. So we all don't have time to go to the spa or to go rowing or to do whatever might trigger the PEA. It might be just a smile. So just know that there's a handout so you can put a pin in it. Oh, check dashboard for PEA Google Drive doc, because we've color coded it. In the first column, it's something that can trigger it almost in a blink of an eye. In the middle column, it'll be something that'll take longer, maybe a minute. And then the third column is you got to do a whole activity. So maybe it's a 20-minute activity. So every day, we as humans, especially living through a global pandemic, are not getting enough PEA. So what can you do? You can purposely trigger it. It's almost like you know a secret way to make people think differently without doing hypnosis. So you want to trigger the PEA 2 to 5 times for every NEA. So let's say you have to get up and tell everybody, we have a new form that you have to fill out. And this training is going to be how to fill out the new form. Holy crap. That was probably like 20 NEAs at once.
Right.
Now,
the word form, I'm literally sweating from the word form, just the word itself.
right?
I have like actual form anxiety.
So now I have to trigger the PEA for Julie 5 times. That, if it's 20, is that 100? It's like, holy cannoli, how do I trigger the PEA 200, 100, even 20 times? So the idea is you need to have planned in every activity, every slide, everything you do with your nonverbals or your verbals, any prompt in the chat. Can you tweak it so it triggers the PEA? So here's how you do it. Nancy, you're going to love this. Next slide. You can ask folks to think about something that's ideal or something that's possible. You can ask folks to express compassion in some way, to think about their values, what they need, like what do you need to be more comfortable? That triggers the PEA. Lisa, I'll get the direct link for you. Can you build upon their strengths? Can you have them express gratitude? And can you generate anything that feels like it's hopeful? So Julie does this all the time. I'm like, Julie, it's already 1 o'clock. And she'll be like, perfect. We still have 15 minutes. And I'll be like, oh, okay. So she reframes things. So it could be something that is just like, boom, or it could be the whole activity. But any of these 5 things trigger it broadly.
Great. There it is right in the drive. Okay. Here's what I'm noticing is it's 1:08 and I want to make sure that people's needs are getting met and that people are really comfortable. So the PEA stuff is magic. It's nothing short of magic. And it's constantly, how do we make sure all of our learners are seen, soothed, secure, and safe, right? We've got to make sure all of our learners feel heard, feel seen, and their desires are met and things like that. We also care very much that you get a lot out of this class. So creating this class for Christy and I was so exciting, but we're like, these people know a ton about a lot of stuff. So we want to make sure to give you a lot of content. That's a trap. That's a trap we've fallen into even today, which is like, they're going to need a lot in order to get a lot. And so we're going really fast, which is very much like drinking out of a fire hose. And so one thing you can do too to trigger the PEA is to stop, to slow down, and to make sure that we're checking in with people. Are there any questions that haven't been answered that you really need answered before you can move on? And if we'll put those in the chat if you have them. And the other thing is, what have we done already to really trigger your PEA? We are not trying to toot our own horn. We just want people to go, oh, that really did trigger for me a positive emotional response. Colorful
Angela,
visual.
you want to stop sharing your screen while folks think. Alicia. So when we think about design and delivery and the content isn't just the academic facts and figures. It's not just about, should I do a breakout group? Really, the content is, am I triggering the PEA? It's how humans learn. So when Teresa said, oh my gosh, I had a staff meeting that bombed, one trade secret is trigger the PEA more during that staff meeting. That's where humans are in their optimal place to learn, accept, try out, change, if I might say. So anything you can do, it's not trying to trick them, it's trying to soothe their nervous system so they can hear what you have to teach them.
Perfect. So this is just, again, if you look at the chat, people are saying this calmed my nerves. This helped me as a learner. And all we want you to do is see, what could I do to calm the nerves and support my learners? Adult learners need all kinds of support all the time while they're learning. Doctoral level learners, any human at all needs a lot of support when they're learning, because we all come to this place feeling anxious about what we're going to get and how it's going to all work. Okay, good. So Christy, in the last 4 minutes, I'm going to give people some choices. We're going to do a little bit more content. We've got just 4 minutes. We're going to do a little more content. If you're someone who's like, I'm full up with content, I'm just going to go apply it. I'm just going to spend time applying it. Do that, and you can always jump back in. If you hit the goodbye, gotta go button, it just means love you, gotta go. You don't even have to say goodbye to us. We know that you, it's not rude, even though it feels rude to hang up on someone, okay? So those are the points I wanna make. Anything else, Christy, before I jump in?
No, we're good. We'll just send you some reminders. I will let you know when your dashboard's updated. You can reach us anytime. Tony put my email in there just in case folks don't have it. Okay.
We're just gonna go through this last big idea.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah, just be clear. Decide on a limited number of points and ideas.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
And draw your through line. So we actually draw an opening to our big ideas, to our activities. So it's opening first, big ideas that we're teaching, then the activities, and then our closing. So we make sure that we've got a really nice through line. And then remember your what before your how. For me, this drawing of a through line is really, really useful. That's how I do it, but people can do it in many different ways. Okay, I'm not going to do this. We're going to go back to that next time. And here's what I'm going to do next is jump to our closing to give this a nice close for today. And then we'll talk more about leveraging fun the next time we get back together. Does that sound good?
So I'll make a note that we will revisit close out, being clear, and a little bit about fun. Okay.
So here's our closer for today. It is, first I want to review this really quickly so you know
where we are.
what
So
we
just
did,
like when we had an opener, you need a closer. So people need to know that you're going to drop the mic, that it's over, that it's time to go. And we always make a joke about Midwesterners saying goodbye to each other because it's a long process. So you're going to experience a Midwestern goodbye right now. Okay. Any of y'all know what I'm talking about? It's not like bye in a New York style. It's like bye. And then we're going to walk to the door and then we're going to hug and kiss again. Then we're going to walk out to the driveway with you. And then we're going to walk into the car. And then when everybody gets in the car, what are you going to do if you're in the car driving away to let everybody know it is finally goodbye? Tell me in the chat, what do you do, Midwesterners, when it's finally over and you're driving off in your car? What's, you got it.
You honk the horn.
Big wave, but yes, usually the horn. Tammy's like, roll down the window and say goodbye again. Yeah, you got it, Tammy. Yeah. So, but wave and honk, absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna do our Midwestern goodbye. Go,
Yeah.
Julie.
No, just to review, we did an opener. We talked about learning about our learners. The biggest point there is learning to love your learners, learning to see your learners through the place of gift, talent, and strength, not deficit area. Even if they're driving you nuts, you got to work hard to see them in a positive light. Determining your outcomes, setting the schedule. We talked a bit about getting the brain ready to learn, and we hope you heard about the PEA. And we stopped at be clear, that's fine. And we skipped leveraging fun, and now we're going to close just to make sure you understand. Our closing for today is on a single piece of paper, write one word that comes to mind when you think of our time together and hold it up in front of the camera and smile. You can also just put it in the chat. Those are your options. But we definitely want those words in the chat for sure. So you can do both or only one. And I'm finding my
Your
right
Flair
part.
pens, you can write on a piece of paper and in the chat. And then Julie, stop sharing your screen so we can get a screenshot of it. Oh, I love these words. Okay, this is my word. Oh yeah, Alicia. Multiple means of representation. Yes, Katie. Fun. Liz, what does yours say? Intense. Ah,
Intense.
yeah, good. Yeah, true. It's true. Oh, joy.
Yay.
All right, Jess, engaging. I thought it said finaging, and I'm like, what's finaging?
So one fun thing to do is if you do this closing, it's called in a word, you end with a word, you can do a screenshot of everybody's word. So like you can just take a quick screenshot and then you get this big, beautiful visual of all the things people were thinking. We care very much that you put your word in the chat because we're going to make a Wordle for you so that you know what people thought and felt. So for example, sometimes people put overwhelmed or scared or freaked out or whatever. That helps us to know how are our learners feeling. We're hoping that you feel joyful and supported and a lot of things like that, but it helps to get that sense. So
Thank
people
you,
are putting
Brooke. I didn't get to see yours, Brooke. Show me one more time. Enthusiastic. Love it. Those are big words, y'all. Oh, impactful. Thank you, Susan. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. So we're going to end on time because we care and respect your time. So feel free to say adios and go. If you want to stay and you have a question, stay because we'll spend at least 5 to 10 minutes answering any questions you might have.
And we'll keep the recording on. If you have a request, if you want to share what worked for you, what you hope we cover next time. I've got some notes about things, but we'll read the chat as well. You can unmute yourself and just say hi or bye too. Or if there's somebody in the group you haven't seen, you want to say hey to them, go for it. Like if you want to say hi, Beth Dietrich, you could say that.
Hi, Ted Burke. I'm so surprised to see you.
Susie and Evan.
Thank you, everyone.
Christy, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
For you or Julie. I think I saw Julie looking in two directions, and I know some people use two screens when they're presenting or holding a meeting. Will you be talking about how you do that?
Sure, we can put that on our list.
We can, sure. Yeah, so I have multiple screens and we're managing chats and managing a bunch of back channel stuff too, which is also tricky. We have something called a back channel, which might mean Christy says, Julie, we have 30 seconds left for this or whatever, and we're communicating multiple ways. When I'm presenting, not about presenting, but presenting a topic, I try really hard to look right there so that it looks as if I'm looking at your eyes. But I have no other input because I'm looking at the camera. And so that's hard. So if you're someone who's like, I want to look at my notes, you might want to scooch your notes right under the camera so that you can move your eyes like this. But we can talk more about using multiple screens.
Other requests or ideas? Alicia, we make our own dashboard. Our team is us, so we don't have an IT team because we're no longer faculty. So we do it all on our own, but we just use easy technology. So if I were making a dashboard without code skills or without WordPress or a website, I would use a Google Drive document. And I would literally just embed images or words as hyperlinks. So I would treat the way our dashboard looks, I would do it on a Google Drive, or I would do it on a Padlet. And so when we are in week 3, we'll walk you through a couple more ideas from low tech to high tech. If you want some sort of community space that's free, that's safe, that you can share, that you can do without IT skills, all the way up to a little bit fancier. But that's a quick answer. But you can always, we can show you some more behind the scenes if you need to see how we do it. But I say Padlet, Google Drive, WordPress. You can accomplish anything you need. We did it was a 4-day conference. It was a Summer Leadership Institute. We had 400 humans from all over the world. And that's all we used was a Padlet, Google Drive, and our WordPress, and Zoom, of course.
And if you're wondering what's a Padlet, it's a great idea just to go ahead and Google Padlet. It's Padlet, and you can start to create your own and play with this stuff. One of the things that I find is the more you just say, all right, I'm going to try it. I'm going to play with it. It might be clunky. I just want to give you all the encouragement in the world to play and try, because some of us are resistant to like even giving it a shot.
And I would say on top of that, don't feel like you have to become an expert. So like if I know Ted's really good at program evaluation, and I know Julie's really good at creative ideas, and I know I like to make spreadsheets, I'm not going to try to be the creative one in the group. Or I'm not going to be trying to do the data analysis part or the big systems level thing. I'm going to ask Ted, how would I do that? So try as best you can to be a team for each other. So, Elaine there in Michigan, she could find another person, and even though they're not working together, build on each other's strengths. So don't try to become a master at all of these things. Try to build a team to support you, and then just trade off. So I'll be somebody's tech person. So Janice Fialka, how many of y'all know Janice Fialka from Michigan? Amazing woman. She is the best storyteller ever. Would y'all agree? Best storyteller, best poet, best whatever. Like, you want to just sit and listen to her. She has so much anxiety, hope she doesn't mind me telling you all this, around technology. So what I do is I'm her wing person. I do Zoom with her, and she doesn't have to read the chat. She doesn't have to do her PowerPoint. What she can do is be fully present for those humans, tell her stories, read her poetry, and connect. And then I do what I do, which is like multitask, put up links, troubleshoot. Does that make sense? Okay.
And it's why you need a co-teacher, and a co-teacher with
Always
a different skill set.
And Julie's the best ever. No offense to anyone else I've ever co-taught with, but she really is good.
But yeah, so you've got to have a co-teacher, and even if it's your teenage kid who lives in your house and they're just managing the chat, it doesn't matter. You have to have someone else that's supporting you. And literally, you've probably seen Christy do it for me, and I do it for her, which is calm them down, take them step by step through something.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you guys have any recommendations for someone someone who's brilliant, and you're wanting to have them, part of your session, but they're not super engaging, and they get on to kind of this level, and you can kind of watch everybody's face go like, ah. Do you recommend more letting them talk and then you guys come on and summarize, or do you have some recommendations on how to still have those people, because they have so much information, but you also don't want your
learners to go, oh
your learners to go drop.
Yeah.
So there's a book that I wrote called 30 Days to the Co-Taught Classroom. And it is about how do you manage all those tricky things with a co-teacher. So whether they're dry and boring, whether they're too speedy, whether they take up too much time or energy, this is strategy after strategy after strategy about how do you manage the other human and manage your own anxiety about stuff while you do that. So Christy and I luckily are kind of a marriage made in heaven. And so it works out beautifully, but I've certainly co-taught with people that I wouldn't say that's the case. And so in here, some quick ideas are you do something called one teach, one make multisensory, which means this, Alicia, I might be teaching, their job is to make things multisensory. They might have a 10-minute lead time, and you say to them, for these 10 minutes, I'm going to draw what you're writing. or sorry, draw what you're saying. You're giving another access point and they understand they have 10 minutes. But the magic happens in the co-planning of that. And I would say this book is filled with strategies for that.
Yeah, and Alicia, I would say also, if you know, like, for example, I interviewed Stuart Schenker. Anybody big Stuart Schenker fans? And it wasn't an interview. If you listen back to it, he just talked for 45 minutes. I was there and people were like, you were there? I'm like, yeah, I was there, you know? So you can either record it and then do what my friend Alyssa Blass Campbell did when she interviewed Alfie Cohen and was really, had emotional reactions to what he was saying. She did a voiceover. So she went back over the recording. That's a lot of work, but you could record them and then break it apart. You could record them and interject. You could do what Julie's suggesting and co-plan with them and say, okay, for 5 slides, talk, and then I'm going to interrupt you. And just so that they know it. The third idea is in your schedule, that color-coded day, just bookmark them with tons of fun. So if you know it's going to be kind of dry, but good, just kind of put that there, but front load and back load, lots of movement, lots of interaction. Or just do, like Julie said, use the chat to keep people engaged while the person's kind of going on.
I have one last way. When my friend Kate and I co-teach, I tend to be very dominant as a co-teacher. Christy can keep up with me, but sometimes I will run over a co-teacher. So I know this about Kate and my relationship. So what we do is we put our picture on the screen, on the slide that we're leading. So literally I have a visual that's like, Julie, it's not your face, so zip it. So for me, I have to be quiet and it helps me. I recognize I'm the problem here. And so Kate knows when it's her turn, she gets to do it and do it her own way. And it's always beautiful, but I have to be quiet enough for it to work, for the beauty to happen.
And I would say too, when you think of co-teachers, don't always think of it as 50-50. So my friend J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez and I, when we co-teach, we were new at doing it. And I was like, okay, you do this half and I'll do this half. And it became very clunky because it was like, your turn, my turn. And we have such different styles that I could tell for folks, they were like, you know, like driving a stick shift that with someone who doesn't know how to do the clutch. And so I had to like say, okay, whose strength is it? And what makes sense? And how do I support her when she's teaching, even though I want to take control because I have the same behavior? So it really had to be honest conversations with each other about what we preferred. Does she like me to interrupt her? Would she rather I stayed quiet and summarized? Does she like me to put it in the chat while she's talking, or does that distract her? So we had to have open conversations about our styles and not have to make it 50-50. And so I had to say, okay, the morning it's going to be heavy J-Lo, and that's okay, Christy Ego.
Christy, did you just say Jennifer Lopez?
I did, but it's not the Jennifer Lopez.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, we do call her J-Lo. She is fabulous. Ted knows her, but she's not J-Lo on the block or Jenny on the block.
I want to pretend that she is, though.
I mean, you thought I was really up in my game, right? I leave higher ed and now I'm hanging out with J-Lo.
Yeah, I wanted to hear more.
Yeah.
Not that I don't now, you know.
Yeah, she's an amazing mom of 5 kids and a banker in Cleveland. There you go. And she's only Lopez because she married a Puerto Rican. So it's not even like, you know, I can't even get her just to be bilingual for me. Anything else, y'all? Y'all just hanging out doing Midwestern goodbyes with us, aren't you? I know you. I know y'all.
Yeah, we're going to just do 2 more minutes. So if you have something else you want to say, say it now.
Requests, comments?
Christy,
yeah,
or Julie, I put a question in the chat, just how to reframe, like in anticipation of meetings, like getting a little too caught up in like, what are the NEAs? Like almost like I'm preparing for a battle, like, and I want to have a positive, like I want to presume positive before I go to certain meetings.
How do you trigger in advance of?
Yeah, like I just want to reframe and just be more positive from the beginning instead of anticipating like there's like 3 people that just find all the barriers.
Yep.
But
so Michelle, let's brainstorm, and I'd actually love to hear other people's thoughts to this, Michelle, because I am almost always presenting about inclusive education to people who are more or less excited about the content. And sometimes less is what they really are. And so I have the straight up panic sweats before every presentation, not this one, but anything about inclusive education that's tricky. And so I'm going to just share some thoughts literally before I go into the room. I pause myself and I picture it going really well. This is weird. This is all kind of woo woo, but this is what I do. I picture it going really, really well. I literally picture at the end people saying to me, I learned so much. And I picture them saying really positive things to me. Then I set it up in the most positive way. And whenever there's the challenges, I teach a strategy called a 5-minute problem solving strategy. So I create a parking lot, and then I use the 5-minute problem solving strategy where I have them solve the problems, not me. Because Michelle, it sometimes feels like it's a tennis match and they're just coming at you faster than you could even hit them back. So instead I say, it feels like a tennis match. So I'm going to pause. I want you to write it down. I slow the conversation down, and then we create a parking lot. And then I do something called a 5 or 15-minute problem solving session on that stuff. Those are some strategies.
And so here it is, Michelle, and we can add this maybe to our list of things. It really does work. So you say, in 1 minute, describe your challenge. And somebody's going to say, we don't have enough time for whatever it is. So they get 1 whole minute to admire the problem. They get to describe it at agnosium. They get to say whatever they want to. We can't do inclusion because parents won't think we're getting enough specially designed instruction. We can't do inclusion because we don't have staffing. We have a schedule that conflicts with, you haven't met our kids. We can't possibly include those kids, right? 1 minute. Then you write a mutually agreed upon question. Julie, can you give us a couple sentence starters for what that question would look like?
So I call this write your question in a solvable form. And so it looks like this. In what ways might we? How could we? So they write the question in a solvable form. Then they have 2 minutes.
How might we create a schedule that includes everyone? In what ways might we remove the barriers for our kids with the most challenging behaviors? That makes sense, Michelle? Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
You have a timekeeper that goes 1 minute, that's up. Then you ask the person that you were playing tennis with to brainstorm by themselves. If you're in a large group, you let everybody brainstorm. For 2 minutes, everybody silently by themselves tries to answer that solvable question. You come back and you ask the person that you were in a tennis match, what is the first step? And they always guaranteed have a first step they will take. 5 seconds, everybody does a high five. And those that were watching it drop in the chat what they thought. And now the person leaves with a whole bucket of possibilities. And that triggered the PEA through the entire process.
That's one strategy. There's another one called envelope full of ideas. Everyone gets an envelope. They write their question in a solvable form. If you're in person, they fill the envelope with solutions. So I literally say, you might get the question and you can't write sucks to be you as an answer. You have to write a real answer to the problem. And so you teach humans to be problem solvers. So they're not looking to you, Michelle, to hit it back every single time, because the truth is you can't. You can't.
Okay. Thank you.
Can't wait for next week. We're going to get off now, but I just want to say thank you for everybody who stuck around and asked questions. And you can always email us if there's something you're hoping for the next couple ones. We'll put those 5-minute problem solving sessions on and we'll actually do some together. And the key is to time them and to stay sacred with that timer.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Tony and Lisa, for supporting us today. Thank you, all you amazing PD providers. We will see you in a week. All right.
Bye, everyone.
I'll see you on the back channel.
Okay, sounds good. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.